Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Jozarov chess channel, and welcome back to the TCEC Season 27 Superfinals between the two most powerful chess engines in the world, between Stockfish 17 and Leela C0. As I'm recording this video, the result is plus 13 for Stockfish. Very crazy result. 86 rounds have been played of the 100 rounds that the engines have to play. So it means basically that this tournament is over. This match is over. Stockfish has very comfortable lead. It means that Leela C0 would have to now win every single game in order to turn things around. So this is not going to happen, of course, especially when Stockfish is playing with the white pieces. So we can fairly say that Stockfish is now the winner of a new TCEC season. And I think this season was really incredible. In the super final, we had great winning matches, great immortal tactical shots all over the board. But I would say also the drawish games that we have covered, especially the games that Leela C0 played with the black pieces, were really amazing, in which Leela C0 showed us two beautiful fortresses that we have covered also here on my YouTube chat channel. Please check them out. The fortress idea by Leela C0 was really amazing. And Leela C0, we have to also mention, won a couple of pairings, so won a couple of matches in which the engines had to play some pre-arranged openings. So it's not like Stockfish is dominating in any opening. So Stockfish is much better, but Leela C0 had, I think, also some bright moments in this TCEC Season 27 Super Final. So I sorted out now one beautiful game for today. We have Stockfish against Leela C0 in a Czech Benoni, in which Stockfish played very spectacular ideas, moves that I would not even consider. Stockfish, I would say, very surprised me here in this game with really amazing, first of all, trades of pieces. Stockfish gave up a light square bishop, which I would never give up, I would say, especially when you play the fianchetto. But of course, Stockfish is a different beast, so put your seatbelts on and enjoy again in an incredible game played by the two most powerful chess engines in the world. So with white, the Stockfish engine opened with the move d4. We have knight to f6 by Leela, but this move, as we mentioned, are so far pre-arranged by the TCEC organizers. So c5, d5, and now after move e5, we have now the so-called Czech Benoni. Knight to c3, d6, e4, and after a couple more moves, we are reaching now this blocked position in the center of the board. And in blocked positions, we should always evaluate a little bit further the strength of the bishops on the board, because when the position is like this, then obviously white's light square bishop is not such a good piece, and of course black's dark square bishop is not a good piece because it's also blocked by its own pawn structure. Here, after e4, bishop to e7, g3 by the fish, and now castling by Leela, bishop to g2, a6, and after move a4, we notice here that black is probably not going to break through here with the move b5. So that's why probably in this particular position, black will search for ideas to play in sort of a King's Indian style. Will probably try to search for opportunities with the move f5. So b5 is, I think, unavailable anymore till the end of the game. So that's why f5 should be the progressive plan here for black. Knight to e8, Leela prepares that immediately. Knight from g2, e2, and now we have the last move that was pre-arranged by the organizer. We have now the move knight to d7. And I would also love to mention here, Stockfish managed to get the draw in the same opening. So many times I've been asked now, why is Leela C0 forced to play a bad opening like this? No, both engines are forced to play the same opening twice, once with the white pieces and also once with the black pieces. So from this point on, the engines are calculating the position for themselves. After knight to d7, castling so far by the fish. And what should you do now from black's perspective? f5 seems tempting and seems like the idea that we have discussed, seems like the most progressive plan, but it's a little bit too rushed. f5 wouldn't be so good because after e takes f5, rook to f5, then white can also break and enter with the move f4. And the issue is that black's pieces are, of course, not well coordinated all over the board. Black's pieces are cramped, so that's why when the center opens now with f5 and f4, white should have much better activity because the pieces are, I think, on more natural squares. The pieces will eventually get back into the game. Even if you take here knight to f4, then the e6 squares are really weak here, and then we can play a5, fix even the position further. And now after something like rook to f8, knight to e6 is simply devastating here for black. Even if you pick up here the piece, look at this bishop gets really beautifully into the game. Rook to f1, maybe you can play, but then queen to f1, we can protect everything. And now look at this, white is controlling the life scores all over the board. So not a pleasant game here for black. The engine, my Stockfish engine at home, evaluates this position as +2 in white's favor. So this is not working. For kingside castling, that's why Leela tried now b6. And now Leela changes a little bit the direction of the attack. Is trying now to play rook to b8, knight to c7, and then eventually put more pressure with the move b5. Finally, f5 is really not working here for black, so that's why Stockfish plays calm king to h1, rook to a7 by Leela, queen to d3, and now g6. Again, Leela is turning things around. Maybe Leela is trying still to make this move f5 happen. Black is really pushed away, I would say, so black is searching now for spaces by pushing some pawns, maybe on the queen side, maybe on the king side. And now Stockfish plays bishop to h3. f5 immediately again is not working, because after e takes f5 and g takes f5, bishop to f5 is immediately winning the pawn. So that's why Leela has to prepare it with the move knight to g7, and now Stockfish plays the calm bishop to d2. What should you do now? Again, from black's perspective, again, if you try f5, it seems tempting now. Again, it's not working, because after bishop to h6, you might be trying to push the pawn further here, but then bishop to e6 is simply, I would say, devastating to handle here for black. King to h8, then we pick up this pawn. We can pick up also here this knight, and then go for this pawn on f4. In this tactical sequence, white will win the game. Maybe black in battle, but then after knight to g to f4, I would say completely winning position here for white. f4, then we push e5, and once this pawn is rolling on the e file, it's, I would say, very not a good game here for black. So that's why for bishop to d2, king to h8, Leela is still preparing the move f5, rook from a to b1, bishop to g5 here by Leela c0, and now f4. Now finally Stockfish goes for the attack. Stockfish says, I have now a much better activity, bishop to h6, and now comes, I would say, the first really huge surprise moment of this game. Stockfish played a move that I would not even consider. When I play chess, sometimes I miss really to calculate any possible moves. You know, when you play chess, you have this candidate moves. You think, okay, should I play now rook to g1? Maybe this is a candidate move. Maybe, I don't know, queen to f3. Maybe even in some lines b4. Maybe also to play knight to d1. But I would never even consider this move, the next move that Stockfish played. Stockfish played now bishop to d7, giving up the Lysko bishop, which, as I said, would be huge problem for me if I would continue now this game, because the Lysko problems are obviously now present in front of white's king. So bishop to d7 was, I was like, wow, what's going on now on the board? And the issue is now that black cannot take with the bishop. If bishop to d7 happens, then b4 is a5 and b4 is going to happen. And after b takes a5, we can play here f takes e5. And the issue is, in this tactical sequence, when the pawns are split here, and now there's also weakness on a5, we can play a calm knight to c1, knight to d3, and look at this. The issue is now that the knight is not controlling anymore both of these pawns, the pawn on c5 and also the pawn on e5. a5 is weak anyway. If a5 is taken, then also a6 is weak. So in this whole sequence, black would be left with really too many weaknesses all over the board. Although, as I mentioned, white has still a couple of light score problems in front of the king. This, I think, game over already here for black. So bishop to d7 is a brilliant idea, because it takes away the key defender of the square c5 and also here of the square e5. So both of these weaknesses Stockfish is trying now to target, and also trying to do this a5 idea that would then split the pawn from b6 from the defense of the pawn on c5. So really interesting middle game idea here by the fish. Leela took now with the rook, and now Stockfish continues with another stunner, which plays now the move g4. And again, if you try something like f takes e5 here immediately instead of g4, then the position is not so good here for white. F takes e5 would be too rushed, because then after bishop to d2, queen takes d2, and d takes e5, even if you try this idea a5 that we have discussed previously, then black can simply play b5 instead of b takes a5. B5 would be then an idea to somehow equalize the game. So what black should not allow here is that the pawns are too weak all over the board. After b5, actually, black is getting out of this mess with bishop to a6. Then both of these knights would be lined up, and this would be then, I would say, again, an equal position with good chances now, finally, also. Here for black, you could maybe try knight from b to c3, but now knight to e6 could happen because of the pin here on the d file, and then the knight could be maybe included into the game through the square d4. So this would be, I think, again, a good game here for black, at least equalizing for sure. You see also the evaluation bar. It's not such a dramatic position for black. So that's why instead of here this idea f takes e5 immediately with the idea to play a5 that was working previously, Stockfish continued now with a huge surprise again, g4. Leela took, Stockfish took, and now bishop to g5. If you try here bishop to f4, then after rook to f4 and maybe g5, the issue is now in this tactical sequence, white would then maneuver the knight to the square f5, where it could be very dangerous. The backward pawn on f6 would also be a huge element in white's attack. Also, I think b4 is working then with bishop to c3, putting more pressure against this pawn on f6. So I would say, again, not a good game here for black. So after knight to f4, Leela tried bishop to g5. We will try now to keep both of the bishops on the board, but now Stockfish played an amazing knight to e6. This is the way to go. Of course, if you play here f takes e6, then the issue is bishop to g5. The bishop gets deflected, pardon, the queen gets deflected from the defense of the rook, so that's why queen to e8 would that be then a forced move here for black, and then bishop to h6. You're trying to do something like this, rook to f7, then we play king to g1, and then after a couple more moves, the issue is that black's queen would be simply stuck to the defense of the knight. You would have to play something like queen to g8, knight to e7, and the game is over here for black. Of course, white and black don't have to play the game like this, but I wanted to demonstrate you that in this line, if, for instance, this bishop is taken, that actually black would have much more dark square problems than white would have light square problems. So as I said, once the bishop is coming here and then the knight is coming on d5, then it's obviously, I think, not a good position anymore for Leela c0. So that's why for knight to e6, Leela was forced to play knight takes e6. We have now d takes e6. Leela had to now escape from this attack because, again, the queen was a little bit overloaded to the defense of the bishop on g5, but also to the defense of the rook on f8. So that's why rook to a7, and now e7. This is the way to go. Stockfish continues the pressure. The problem is now you cannot play queen takes e7 here because the knight is coming in a beautiful way into the game, and then when the queen stops back, then look at this, then you're facing the dark square problems that we have discussed. Although white has also light square problems, but they cannot be attacked immediately. Now, after something like king to g8, look at this, bishop to g5, then the knight to f6 is going to happen, and the queen and the knight are playing in such beautiful harmony. Then rook from b to d1, the rook gets included into the game. I don't know, you're trying, I don't know, something like bishop to g4, and then of course knight to g4 comes with the check. This is not working. Maybe you're trying something like, I don't know, queen to h6 to somehow get the queen into the defense, but then rook to d6, you're trying to get the queen here, and once this knight is fixed with a move g5, black is simply neutralized. Black is simply paralyzed by this beautiful piece activity of white's. b6 is weak. Many problems in black's position for sure. So e7, brilliant idea here by Stockfish. Bishop to e7 had to be played now by Leela, and now Stockfish plays on the same idea. Knight to d5, bishop to c3, or queen to c3, putting more pressure here against the dark squares in front of black's kings. That's why Leela covered the dark squares with the move f6, but this move again neutralizes, paralyzes the dark square bishop of Leela c0. Stockfish continues with rook to f4, protects now the pawn on g4, and the issue is now, again, you cannot play g5. You would love to do that, and even if you pick up this pawn on g4, then bishop to c3, look at this, rook to f1 is going to happen, and white is continuing the pressure against the weakness on f6. Suddenly, the f6 pawn is undefendable anymore. Too much pressure again against black's king. After rook to f4, that's why king to g8. Leela is trying to get out of this attack by potential attack by the dark square bishop, but Stockfish continues with rook from b to f1 anyway. Queen to e8, and now bishop to c3, bishop to d8, and now bishop to f6, rook to f7, and now g5. Beautiful move. Look how Stockfish is pushing now Leela into the defense. The pieces are really, really cramped again. Look at this. Not really a good position for the bishops, for the rooks. g5, bishop to b7, here by Leela c0, trying to do, of course, something on this light square diagonal, and now a calm king to g2, even is possible here by Stockfish. What should you do now from black's perspective? For instance, if you try bishop to d5, seems tempting, but then queen to d5 pins now the rook here against the king. So even if you try bishop to f6, then rook to f6 is going to happen, and the problem is after king to g7, there is now this beauty, e5. The problem is now you cannot play queen takes e5 here. Then this rook on f7 will be taken, and after a couple more moves, you would be checkmate. Even if you try d takes e5, then a5. Again, this motif to split the pawns here to create many weaknesses. Then after b takes a5, rook to f7, we can trade off everything. And now once the queens are only on the board and the rooks are traded off, in this potential endgame, this should be completely winning. You're trying maybe a5, but then queen to d5 is creating this pass pawn for white, and obviously in this endgame white should be completely winning, although the material is equal, but these are double pawns. This pawn is of course stopping them, and it's not a good position, of course, for Leela c0. For king to g2, that's why we have queen to d7. Leela is trying to hold on to this position, but now we have here bishop to d8. Leela tries rook to f4, and now a brilliant idea again by the fish, knight to e7. A beautiful in-between check against the king, and believe me or not, the move knight to e7 is the only move that's making further progress here for white. Every other move leads now into a drawish line. Knight to e7, the only, I would say, move that continues the pressure here by Stockfish against Leela c0. What should you do now again here from black's perspective? If you try here to play king to g7, if you try to escape from this check like this, then queen to c3 is coming. You have to play king to f7, and now when the rook is coming in on f4, then we play something like this. The queen is coming, and after queen to g8, this would be then a beautiful checkmate sequence. So this not working. After knight to e7, that's why Leela had to play now king to f7. Stockfish has now immediately the opportunity to get the rook back. The king has to step back to e8, and now knight to g6. Beautiful move here again by Stockfish. Stockfish is having so far still up a piece, but at least he grabbed now a pawn. After knight to g6, rook to f4, knight takes f4, and now queen to g4. This line is pretty much forced. Leela is trying to hold this position, is trying to get some pawns back. Stockfish has to now cover with queen to g3. Leela takes now the pawn on e4, and this sequence is really incredible. It's really immortal here. Bishop to e4, king to f2. Leela picks up now the queen. Stockfish takes out now the queen, and now finally Leela takes the bishop on d8. But now we have reached this position in which still the materials is equal, but Stockfish says this should be still winning here for white because of this 2 versus 1 situation on the king side, and Stockfish plays now beautiful king to g4, announces now the possibility that the king could march towards his pawn, and there's not so much that can be done here from black's perspective. Even if you try to play something like king to e7, even if you try to get the king closer to the action towards the king side, then h4, king to f7, then we try king to h5, and now even if the bishop goes for this pawn, white's attack is much faster. Look at this. Then we play knight to d5. You can pick up maybe this pawn, but once the knight is coming on f6, we pick up this one now, and in this situation where 2 pawns are rolling here, this is completely winning here for Stockfish. You can maybe just prolong the game, but maybe you can also go for the c4 pawn. But now knight to d5, bishop to c4, look at this, g6, knight to f6, look at this, g7, and now we play a calm h5, and this is game over. Even if you try here instead of bishop to c2, maybe you should not go for the pawns here. Maybe you can try, I don't know, king to g7 to keep the king closer to the action. Again, it's not working because of knight to e6 check. Then we go for this pawns here, also control the d5 square. The issue is always that the knight will eventually come on f6, and then after bishop to d3, as we mentioned. Now once the knight is coming to f6, again the same pattern, we pick up this pawn. You can start maybe to roll this one on the d file, but this knight is controlling this one. You're trying to play something like king to e7, then we attack the pawn, and now obviously h6, g7 and g8 is simply devastating here for black. So I'm showing you this line because in the beginning it seemed to me that the king should be closer to the action, but it's also not working. After king to g4 that Stockfish played, Leela tried bishop to c2, tried to go now for the pawns immediately. Stockfish continues now with the beautiful a5, split now the pawn chain, and this d6 pawn is so far held by the c4 pawn, so the pawn cannot roll. This square is taken, and again Stockfish played on the same pattern, creating now two pawns here that are doubled, and still this pawn is holding so far the potential progress of the pawns on the a file. We have now king to h5, king to e7. Now comes this idea again. Stockfish pushes the pawn further. We have again this motif h5, a4. Stockfish reroutes now the knight all over the board, and now king to e6. Bishop to d3 to attack maybe this pawn on c4 immediately. It's not working because after knight to c3, bishop to c4, we can pick up now this one, and again we would reach this position in which two pawns are marching again. Game over. Here for Leela c0. That's why after knight to e2, bishop to c2, again knight to c3, we have now king to e6, knight to d5, we have now king to e5, and now knight to f6. Again, Stockfish is going simply for the pawn on h7. Bishop to d3, Stockfish takes, Leela takes, g6, we have now bishop to d5, king to g7, and now c4. Here, Leela is making already great progress with now two pawns that are battling against one pawn, so Leela created at least something here in this endgame. Knight to f6, we have now a3, b takes a3, c3, knight to d5, we have king takes d5, and now king to f6, c2, we have g7, c1, g8 comes now with the check. We have king to d4, and now queen to g5. Here forces now again a reaction by black, and this game is really spectacular. We had really madness all over the board, and the game was really, really beautiful tactical. But now the material is equal. The only advantage that white has here is, of course, the more progressive pawn here that's closer to the potential promotion on the h file. This pawn is a passer, but it's far away from a potential promotion. So Stockfish created all of this madness just to create this beautiful endgame here, which is still winning if white, of course, plays the game correctly. But of course, Leela is battling queen to h1. Stockfish pushes the pawn further. King to c3, queen to g6. Leela delivers some checks, of course, trying to hold the position. But look at this, the pawn is already now on the 7th rank. Queen to f8, king to g6, queen to e8. Now Stockfish escapes from this attacks and now plays the calm king to f6. No more good checks are possible if you go for the trades of queens here. It's not good because, as we mentioned, white is much closer to the promotion. Queen to h1, queen to f5, king to d2. Stockfish again gets the king closer. d5, queen to f6, and you could maybe try moves like queen to b1, but then again, king to h6, you're trying to do something like this, and once this queen is promoted, again, it's simply game over. So that's why for queen to f6, queen to e4, Stockfish is battling. Leela is, of course, delivering some checks, but now Stockfish finally got a new promotion, and after a couple more moves, it was obviously game over. After queen to f2, king to d1, and queen to f1, Stockfish delivered checkmate here with this two queens. So, amazing game with really great strategies. We saw this early bishop for knight trade, which was a huge surprise for me. Then this f4 move, then exploiting the dark square problems. In the beginning, it seemed to me that Stockfish could have light square problems, but Stockfish is always turning things around somehow, and then this beautiful endgame, reaching the endgame, and also splitting the pawns on the queen side, creating distant pass pawn on the h file. Great, great, great game here by Stockfish 17. So, okay, I would say this tournament is over. Stockfish is the winner of a new TCEC season. Which was not, of course, such a huge surprise, but as I mentioned also in the beginning, Leela had some bright moments, had some winning games, had this immortal fortress draws that we have covered. So in the next couple of days, we're going to cover, of course, some other games from the super final. But let's congratulate again here the developers of the TC of this Stockfish engine. It's, I think, still the most powerful chess engine in the world. So, okay, if you want to see some other beautiful games from this event, check out our beautiful 2 fortresses that LCZero created in this super final. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos. And what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.